What's up, everyone? Real quick, I did a Q&A. Well, not a Q&A. I did a stories thing on Instagram where people can just drop a question. I'll give them a quick answer. Did it for fun. It ended up going over 100 questions answered somehow. I guess on stories, once it's over like 100, Instagram starts like deleting the first one, so I couldn't like get back to finish the rest of the responses, but I did get over 100 done. So I figured I should probably put it up on Instagram since there's a lot of commonly asked questions that you guys want to know. So at least it'll be on YouTube. That's what I meant to say. At least it'll be up on YouTube so people can always reference it. They can go through it. Maybe the same questions you have, the answers are in there. So also it's kind of fun having to try to answer everything in 15 seconds or less. But yeah, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. But yeah, did that. Questions will be after this. Also, anyone for coaching, my email's below. Just hit up growoakstrong@gmail.com. Also, I have two programs for people who don't really want the full coaching experience necessarily or just need like a lower price point. I have two program links below for my power building program as well as my 50-day squat program. So check those out. Also, just in general, body's feeling good. I know I haven't posted on YouTube in like 2-3 weeks, but I will be posting more often again. Just needed that quick break where I was just kind of messing around off season, getting into a different swing of things, switching up the flow. So more stuff is coming. Stay tuned. Best way to increase max bench would be to increase your strength of every muscle in your upper body, basically. So variety over specification for bench press, I would say. The best way I found is I set my back, meaning like I get my spine neutral, I get my lower back, my upper back, my mid back neutral before I drop my hips. Then I drop my hips into position, then I pull. Again, with bench press, it really comes down to variety. This is why a lot of bodybuilders tend to bench a lot, whereas bodybuilders can't really stay with powerlifters when it comes to, things like squat. It's because with bench press, it's not really about technique, it's about muscle size. Honestly, it isn't one exercise. You just want to do a lot of overhead pressing. For strength, it's going to be barbell things, obviously, as opposed to like dumbbell or unilateral things. For health, it's going to come down to things like, the Arnold. So two things with this. One, you want to set your back before you pull, obviously. You want to get your spine neutral, but also you have to be very patient. A lot of people get their back straight, but then they're not patient, so when they're trying to pull the bar, they let their back bend. To which you then have to be patient and waiting for the bar to move without letting your back lose its rigidity, you could say, but basically not letting your back bend. And the way I got into lifting was when I was a runner in high school. My coach had me start lifting weights in the off season, so at least I was doing something basically, because during cross country, I would usually just not do anything, so that's how I started lifting weights. For the most part, you're going to want to go through periods of time where you're going from higher reps to lower reps. You don't really want to do the same reps every single week. But really, you don't want to get to that point where you're doing a lot of singles for the most part. You don't want to get to that point where you're maxing out a lot. The best way I know to keep your pecs healthy is to keep your shoulders healthy, keep your back healthy, keep your elbows healthy. Basically, you have to keep everything healthy, and it's not easy. There's no shortcuts, unfortunately. If anyone finds any, let me know. Yeah, my off-season goals are, one, to get my quad tendons as strong as possible because that's an issue I have continually, and to get my muscle clean plus strict press as strong as possible, and my shoulders help. Shoulder strength helps to an extent, but also it helps in terms of just being healthy. If your shoulders are too weak and you become very chest dominant, you'll start having issues with injuries. So it's not so much adding weight to your bench, it's more so... I do bodybuilding movements all year long. I always do it whenever I'm in meet prep, I do accessory work after the big 3 lifts. Whenever I'm in the off season, I'm doing it, so I do it all year long. Rack pulls are a solid movement for back strength. I personally don't do them often, but I do give them to my lifters, so they are a good exercise for back strength. Good question. A couple months ago, I measured it to around 37 inches. That was around 240 pounds. When I was in high school, when I was 5'10", I was able to hit my head right on the bottom of the backboard, so it was closer to like 48. Like I said before, variety. Get every muscle in your upper body as big as possible. I mean, when you feel like you absolutely need it, or when you're about to compete, basically. I honestly didn't know about most of this shit until I was like squatting in the sixes to low sevens, benching over 400. But yeah, I would say until you feel like you actually need it, like it's holding you back not having it, or you're about to compete, so there's no reason to kind of give up that competitive advantage. In powerlifting, it's hard to say. Right now, I'm just aiming for a 2,200 pound total in just knee sleeves. A little longer term, I want an 880 squat in knee sleeves, but I don't really know. Sky's the limit. I'm not sure. I haven't seen it in a while. It's kind of disappeared between my back and my head. Simply my shoulders just aren't mobile enough to do it correctly. Therefore, when I do it, I get nothing but injuries. Overhead press definitely is not one of my specialties, but it's no different than any other lift in terms of practicing it, doing some volume, etc., to increase your strength at it. Not anymore. I am looking into getting into cycling, perhaps, but we shall see. I might get a road bike soon, and of course, soon after, I will be on the tour. No, it does not. Pointing your feet out, or the angle at which you have your feet on sumo, has a lot more to do with your hip mobility than anything else. The more mobile your hips are, the more forward you can point your toes. The less mobile you are, the more. I didn't start competing until I was 27. I stopped running when I was 22, and in that 5 year period, I was kind of like power building. Didn't even know what powerlifting was. I kind of just fell into it. But 27 is when me, I try my best to keep the weight on my heels and the outside of my foot. Others go a little further on their foot, but I really try to keep the weight on my heels and the outside. It depends on how bad it is and how necessary it is for you to train. If it's a bad injury, you got to take time off. There's really no way around it. If it's not that bad, you may need to work out just to get the injury better. So it depends. Well, right now I'm in the off season, so I'm literally doing whatever I please. I don't even have a plan going into the gym. But when I'm in comp prep, usually I'm going to do one of the main lifts, squat, bench, or deadlift, followed by a ton of accessory work. In my opinion, 5x5 is effective for newer lifters, and why it's effective is it just gives them a program to where they can be consistent and kind of get their intro to the gym before they start doing real shit. Right now I'm 32. I don't know when I'm going to stop competing. I like competing, so I can't imagine I'm going to stop on good terms. I'm not just going to like retire on top, I'm sure, because I just like competing. It's hard to answer for me because I go off of feel. However, there is kind of like almost like a best fit line where I know where I need to be at different times. It's just not so precise as in I'm going to hit this number. But literally, I kind of already know. I'm competing in January, and I kind of already know where I'm going to need to be at certain points to hit the numbers that I want. My favorite, not necessarily best, but my favorite would have to be SSB front squats. They're just really fun for me. I can move weight. I feel bouncy. Probably not the best, but they are my favorite. I mean, I don't really get anxiety, but in general, you just want to think it's another squat, and you really want to think about your cues and what you have to get done more so than the weight itself. If you think about that, then it's not as bad. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I don't think people should really compete in powerlifting when they're 14 years old, but since you are, my advice would be not to focus so much on your numbers, but focus on the rules and what's going on, and more so just get a feel for how meets flow through, because a lot of stuff is going to throw you off in terms of warming up with other people, in terms of being on the platform, listening to the judges, knowing where they are, etc. So focus on that stuff more so than trying to hit big PRs on every single lift. That, and make sure you enjoy yourself. My personal favorite at the moment, not necessarily the best, and not even necessarily specifically for deadlift, but my favorite would be inverse curls. which we have the machine at Mount Vernon Barbell, and it's helped me a lot. There's two answers. So I can easily be in the gym for 3 to 4 hours. If I needed to, though, I could definitely cut it down to like an hour, hour and a half. But I don't need to rush it, so I don't. But I could. My take on it is you should train deadlift. You should try to have your back straight. You definitely shouldn't approach deadlift like, oh, I want to pull with a rounded back. It's more of something that people who are lifting a lot more weight are going to do, but you don't. It's like no one really sets up like, oh, like I'm setting up purposely to have my back rounded. It's something that kind of comes over time, more so because of the weight. But it's like you shouldn't like train purposely rounding your back. When I'm in comp prep, 3 days. I really try to keep it to only 3 days for recovery purposes. Off season, usually 4 or 5 days, even sometimes, because I'm just not as tired and I can do it, and the workouts aren't as strenuous. Right now, I am planning to compete in January, and I do not plan on cutting weight. So technically, I'll be in the 275s, but I'll probably be like 255, 260-ish. Pretty much everything. Right now, I'm going to focus on sissy squats because my quad tendons are definitely my weak point. But I mean, I do quad extensions, leg press, hack squats, front squats. When I'm in comp prep, I only do one top working set for the most part on the main lifts, followed by a lot of accessory work, hypertrophy, like bodybuilding stuff. But in the off season, it's whatever I want. I could do multiple sets. Like it really ends up just being whatever I feel like in the off season. But in comp prep, on the big three lifts, one top set. It's usually an AMRAP, and then I just do accessory work. Honestly, if you're very posterior chain dominant and your deadlift is way stronger than your squat, which I'm gonna make that assumption, in the off season, I would mostly do front squats. I wouldn't even back squat most of the time until I was in comp mode. Me, honestly, before all of my workouts, I do a lot of static stretching. That's just what works for me. I know a lot of people are against it. I have to. I've tried to cut it out multiple times to see if I could. I cannot. So pre-workout, I do a lot of static stretching, and then really my warm-up sets kind of act as like a dynamic workout because obviously the weight is lighter. So that's how I kind of fully end up warmed up by my top sets. Post-workout, I do a ton of more active stuff. I do a lot more rolling as opposed to stretching. I don't really stretch post-workout. It's more so rolling whatever's tight and doing more active. For water cuts, I do a very simple water load like most people do. You can find info online very easily. And then I use magnesium citrate, which pretty much will clear you out, make you poop your brains out. I mean, it's not really best. A lot of them do the same thing, like Romanian deadlifts, stiff leg deadlifts, Dimmel deadlifts. I prefer Dimmel deadlifts. That's just my preference, but I can't really say one is better than the other. I've never used a Sabo. Chucks are terrible for deadlifting because they're just too loose. They're not fitted enough on your foot. Nike Hyper KOs, for me, just happen to fit my foot perfectly. They're almost like gloves. My absolute favorite post-workout meal would have to be a nice steak with some mashed potatoes and like steamed veggies. Yeah, I think, yeah, steak, mashed potatoes. I mean, it's what you would think. Stretching and mobility. You just gotta look up exercises. There's no secret exercise. You gotta stretch. I in general do a full stretching routine. I do the same exact routine before every single workout, which involves stretching my entire body. For knees specifically, there was the dips off of plates that I do. Obviously there's your simple quad stretch, there's your hip flexor stretches, but it's nothing I don't do anything out of the ordinary specifically for my knee pre-workout. Post-workout I do more stuff, but pre-workout I don't really do anything. I don't even think about it anymore. Honestly, what I told people is you control the input, you don't control the output. You control how hard you work, you don't control the numbers that are to come. So I go in, I work hard. Sometimes my numbers, sometimes I have a big change in numbers on a lift. Sometimes the lift stays the same for a long period of time. I don't really think about it anymore. Obviously, I think about strengthening weaknesses, but I control the input, I don't control the output. Yes, they do. They help with stabilizing your knee and they help with your ankle mobility. If your calves are tight, your ankles will be tighter. It will be harder for you to get to your bottom position in a squat while keeping your heels down. Yeah, honestly, I just wanted a change of scenery. Sometimes you just need a change of scenery. When you do the same meet over and over, sometimes you're just not like with the vibe anymore. So that's why I went to a different meet. It wasn't really about the money, which I think a lot of people think. Sometimes you just need to change the scenery, and it worked out. I mean, I got a nice check, so that was cool. But really, I just needed a change of scenery. There isn't one. Train hard, hope for the best. Putting 50 pounds on any lift under any circumstances is good. Yes, I have, and I suck at it. I actually double overhand more because my forearms are incredibly tight, my wrist mobility sucks, and my hands are tight. But I don't really need it. My grip is fine on conventional deadlifts. I'm a conventional puller. My favorite deadlift variation is pulling sumos. That demo deadlifts, inverse curls, good mornings, hamstring curls, and a lot of back. I am a Giants fan. I'm from New York. I'm with the blue and red. That's who I'm with, Big Blue. There isn't a most helpful accessory. I see this question in like a million different shapes and forms for every single lift. You pretty much gotta do everything. You can't just walk in the gym, do one thing, and be God. You gotta do everything. I mean, the best way I can put it, they have a very thin sole, they're very flexible, they're very strong, and they fit my foot like a glove. So that's why I wear them. They're way better than Chucks to me. Chucks, my foot moves all over them. Competition-wise, I've been competing for 5 years now, which doesn't really feel like it, but yeah. Somehow I've been doing this for 5 years. I mean, it's not like how they stay strong. I honestly don't know anyone who cuts and doesn't lose strength. It's just how much strength are you losing, right? For example, if you're cutting to 220, if you're cutting to 220 instead of going in as a 242, that's probably like 100 pounds difference in total going from 220 to 242. So if you lose 40 pounds on the platform, but you're a weight class lower, then you benefited. I don't really have a take on it. Most people are going to be better at low bar. I happen to be better at high bar, mostly because of my shoulder mobility and just my structure of my shoulders, just in the length of my arms. I can't really get that bar where it needs. I can't really get the bar where it needs to be without fucking up my shoulders, but majority of people are gonna be stronger than low bar. You're utilizing more muscle. It's a better use of leverages, but I'm better at high bar. I'm not sure what you mean, whether you're talking about like working with percentages or work with exercises wise, but when you just get back in the gym, just do what you used to do. Just don't go as heavy. Just take it a little easier. Don't do as much volume until you feel better. A lot of people do different things. Personally, I eat a ton of rice before I go. Then during the day, all I have is Nutrigrain bars. I try to eat a Nutrigrain bar after every attempt on the platform. Also like a bagel between lifts maybe. Also noon tabs are good so you don't cramp. I had salt pills at my last competition so I didn't cramp. A lot of Gatorade, a lot of Red Bull, a lot of water. I think that was it. Just DM me. I'm usually at Mount Vernon Barbell. I usually train like 1 to 4-ish Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but just DM me ahead of time and ask me if I'll be there when you're going to be there. My next competition, I don't plan on cutting weight, so technically I'll be a 275er. I'll probably be like 255, 260. Anytime I get over like 260, it just hurts. It doesn't feel good at all on my body, so I won't go heavy. Like I can't see myself being like a full 275, but I'll compete like 255, 260 without cutting, so like technically I'll be a 275er. It depends. I'm not a high frequency person for me. Obviously, it depends on the person. I will say whichever you're better at, you're going to want to do more often. If you're a stronger deadlifter, deadlifting will be easier for you to do more. Usually, whichever of those two lifts that you're more efficient at doing, which will normally be the one you're stronger at, you can do a lot more often and recover quicker from. whereas the other one will take longer recovery, so you won't do it as frequently. I read the Nike Hyper KO, which stands for Kevin Oak. Nike just doesn't know that. But the Hyper KO boxing shoes. I don't know. I think the position is currently open. I used to think it was like T. Cummins was the white Kevin Oak, and I was like the black T. Cummins, but not so much anymore. So I guess it's just open. I don't know. Are you trying to be it? I don't know. I'm kind of regretting it a little with some of the questions I've gotten, which obviously I didn't post the weird ones. But I guess it's not so bad. I can be nice. Yeah, you got to figure out what specifically is fatiguing your back and kind of do less of it. If you're just doing too much frequency between like squat and deadlift, you got to do less because you just can't handle that in your program, which is fine. I mean, if you can hook grip, fine. With max weight, then I would go with hook grip. That's definitely better than mixed grip if you can do it. But if not, mixed grip is fine. Most people use mixed grip. Probably in the spring, although you should probably not wear them if you're bony ass. You know you can't fucking rock tank tops. Keep that shit over at Coliseum. Are you even over 200 pounds? Soon, man. Kyger's been dealing with some injuries and shit, but we worked out yesterday. You should come back stronger than ever. Usually I don't, but since I'm trying to lean out a little right now, I've been doing cardio every workout, so 4 days a week. Probably this week. I think I'm gonna start a series talking about why I do the exercises I do, and just going through my workouts, explaining everything. So, real soon. More than likely, you're either tighter on one side or you have some type of weakness, more so on one side than the other. So you just got to figure out what it is. Usually when you switch from wraps back to knee sleeves, you just got to drop the weight a lot and build back up. Otherwise, your knees just feel like shocked by it, and they're not really up to par with everything else because they've had the knee wraps on. There's a lot of ways. One being doing dead stop deadlifts instead of touch and go. Another would be using like a stiff bar instead of a deadlift bar. Block pulls help as well because you have to get tight. My thoughts are that's a bad idea and it's going to get you nowhere fast. And it's just overkill and you're not going to be able to recover unless you're lifting so light that you can easily do it every day, in which case you wouldn't really benefit from it. A couple ways. One, I only get it when I start squatting 800 plus. If you're actually talking about me when you say you're, as opposed to generally speaking. But usually quad tendonitis is your quad tendon, so you have to strengthen that. You have to strengthen your quad tendons and or work on your knee mobility. It's one of the two things that's causing it. If your quads are mobile and your quad tendons are strong, you shouldn't have quad tendonitis. The only one I would possibly do is when Klokov does Klokov Power Weekend and he has the muscle clean with the strict press. I would do that, and that's pretty much the only one I'd be able to do. My favorite lift is probably the squat. I just like doing it the most. I'm the best at it, or that's what I'm best at, I should say. Yeah, I just love squatting, every variation of it. Yeah, don't bench frequently when you have bicep tendonitis. Jumping and squatting are very similar. Squatting, you're just not leaving the ground, but you're using the same exact muscles to jump and squat. So it's good to do both. They both help each other. Yeah, for sure. I like training with a stiff bar a lot. I usually don't at my gym just because I don't want to use up the power bars because people are trying to use them for benching and such. But yeah, if you use a stiff bar, it will primarily help you with your off. It will primarily help you off the ground. Your speed off the ground, because with a stiff bar you have to get tighter to get the bar to move. So when you switch to a deadlift bar, it'll be a little easier to get the bar to move. Yes, I do, along with 2 other people. Honestly, there's so many other variables that come into play with training, having to do with the type of person and the type of athlete a person is, that performance enhancers are only one of those variables. So no, especially at this weight. But in the future, I do think I might get into cycling. If there's ever a post-powerlifting life, I think cycling will be my next thing. It depends on like how much energy I have, how tired I am, etc. But usually like 5 or 6. I don't go to a chiropractor. I go to a, what is it, physical therapist. I see him every week. David Motive on Instagram, but I try to see him every week if I can. Usually a little less in the off season because I just don't need it. What I do personally is I take a deep breath, I lift out of the rack, I take another deep breath, I get back into position, I take another huge deep breath, I go down and up, and then I take another huge deep breath before. Also, I should say before the deep breaths, there's usually a couple of very quick, short, smaller breaths, and then a deep breath. My favorite knee sleeves by far have been SBD. I've had several pairs. None of them have actually like torn or anything. I just have different colors, but those have done the best for me, so that's what I wear. It certainly can be. I just wouldn't do that and also deadlift a lot at the same time.